Hello, everyone. Welcome to Before the Hedges, presented by Kroger. My name is Brandon Adams. This is Dog Nation's recruiting insider, Jeff Sintel. And listen, this was bound to happen at some point in time. You know, I guess our wardrobes are at least to some degree similar. We're both kind of rocking the vest today, both the red striped shirt. And at a certain point in time, I think the kids call this twinning. I believe that's the phrase that's used. At some point in time, we were sort of bound to do this, I guess.
I hate to see the internet memes that are gonna flourish out of this right here. The one thing I'm sure you and I will not color coordinate on would be some blue and orange, right?
Yeah, that's the one thing you'll never see me wear, and if you do, you certainly know that's an imposter. Coming up in just a couple of seconds, we've got a big-time major event here on Before the Hedges, presented by Kroger. Great reporting by Jeff Sintel, getting a chance to speak exclusively with five-star linebacker Nakobe Dean, one of those top targets remaining for Georgia, really not just the Bulldogs, but all of 2019, all of college football. Everybody wants this big-time linebacker. We'll find out from Dean here today, courtesy of an interview he did with Jeff, what Dean likes about Georgia, when we may see him on the Athens campus, and kind of what it is about the Dogs that have sort of gained his interest thus far. We'll do that coming up in a couple seconds. Let me also say this, though, right off the top of the show, before we kind of get into everything else. Here around Dog Nation, of course, Before the Hedges presented by Kroger, and right now we're really excited about the fact that Dog Nation and Kroger teaming up together once again for a Dog Nation invasion to Baton Rouge coming up the month of October. If you go to dognation.com, you can sign up and register for your chance to win the Dog Nation invasion giveaway courtesy of Kroger for a Dog Nation daily listener, viewer, dognation.com reader, Before the Hedges viewer here to kind of have a chance to be a part of one of the biggest games, biggest parties of the upcoming season. So go to dognation.com, register on that, and we'll be excited to announce the winner of the Dog Nation Kroger Dog Nation Invasion giveaway in an upcoming edition of Before the Hedges presented by Kroger. So with that out of the way, let me sort of dive into really our first big story to get into off the top here, your conversation with five-star linebacker Nakobe Dean. You can no doubt read a lot of this from Jeff coming up at dognation.com in the days ahead, but let me also give you a chance to hear some of Dean with Jeff. And Jeff, this first question we're going to hear you ask Dean. His answer is going to feature a word that a lot of Georgia fans, their ears may perk up on. It's the word love. Nakobe Dean says he loves UGA, and here's why. Take a listen to Jeff with the five-star linebacker.
What do you think would be the biggest reason if it ended up being Georgia?
My competitive nature. I know they deep at linebacker. Depth is good, so I do want myself to be challenged. So I know if I can beat out everybody else, I can probably be the best.
Would you worry if you went to a place and you're on the first team in like 2 or 3 weeks? Would you worry about that type of school, that maybe they don't have enough guys like you to push you?
I would. I mean, I know how hard I work, how hard I would probably push everybody else to work to step the game up if I did ever feel like that.
So that's Dean right there talking about one of the things that might draw him to Georgia, that competitive fire that he has, the fact that, for some linebackers, and frankly, we've even heard suggestions of some linebackers here in the 2019 class maybe turned off by the depth that Georgia has right now. But you hear Nakobe Dean right there say that that's not really a factor for him whatsoever.
Yeah, he kind of looks at it, if he came to a school, Brandon, and everybody out there, and if he was starter by 2 or 3 weeks or early into fall camp, he's going to be an early enrollee, remember, but he would kind of worry about that. He'd say, I'm in the wrong place where I'm not surrounded by guys that will push me and will make me find my true ceiling. Really interesting what's going on with Nakobe right now. He had a top 7 that was put out there and released across his social, but what he's decided to do is he's really kind of knocked it down to a top 5, and I kind of went back and forth with him, and I said, hey, how do you let the world know you got a top 5? And he says, the schools that are in my top 5, they know who I'm still talking to. They know they're in the top 5. And then if I'm not talking to them anymore, they know they're not in the top 5.
Well, there's no doubt that Georgia's still one of those schools Nakobe Dean's talking to, and he's also talking about UGA with you, among some other schools, in an interview that you've done here for dognation.com. Let's hear now a little more from Jeff with Nakobe Dean.
What do you think would be the biggest reason if it ended up being Georgia?
My competitive nature. I know they deep at linebacker. Depth is good, so I do want myself to be challenged.
Nakobe, how do you feel about Georgia right now? Who's talking to you about Georgia, and how do you feel about the Bulldogs right now?
I love Georgia. Coach Shooting and Coach Laney, I do most of my communication with them. Being such like masterminds of the game and give me tips all the time. about what I can do better, what can help me.
So obviously the relationship that Nakobe Dean feels like he has with Georgia is very strong there.
Yeah, you like that word love there, Brandon?
I do like that a lot.
And I think did you prefer the word mastermind in that word as well,
Sure.
in that conversation as well, when he refers to Schumann and also Dan Lanning? It's kind of funny. It's kind of like our relationship, Brandon. I think.
Am I you or am I Nakobe Dean in this sense?
No. I mean, the way he kind of views Lanning and Schumann are kind of the way I think maybe most of our peers around Cox Media would view us.
Maybe that's the case. Yeah.
He said one of those guys is the fun one and the party one. Obviously, this guy right here, and then the other one is more of the professorial, the teacher, the guy that's always cracking knowledge and everything else like that. So that's not a bad thing because Dan Lanning's a heck of a recruiter right now.
Yeah.
I think the very interesting thing here about the Nakobe Dean and, everybody out there, I think I had a listener or a reader somewhere across Dog Nation that said, man, I need some Nakobe Dean. Well, that's for you guys.
That may have been me, by the way.
That may have been you. You need some Nakobe Dean. Here's my big takeaway. We got another clip, I think, as well on Nakobe Dean, but my big takeaway is this. He's going to schedule an Auburn official visit in September. He's also going to give another official visit to Florida State. His last official visit will be to LSU because LSU's asked for it. And then he's also already taken an Alabama official visit. So you can kind of line things up right there. He's going to Georgia for the Vanderbilt game because of scheduling mostly. He's going to LSU for his official visit because they asked for it. And then FSU, who he's only been to see one time, although his mother's comments almost went viral in terms of she's in love with Willie Taggart and the Seminoles now, will also get another official visit. It's going to be hard to squeeze all those in, and if you're keeping score, Nakobe Dean has been to Ole Miss the most, followed by LSU and Alabama, and then at the Georgia's right around the 4 or 5 range. And then you've got Florida State with just one visit so far.
So you mentioned the fact that for the Georgia visit upcoming this season, it's for the Vanderbilt game. That's not typically the kind of game you'd think about Georgia hosting a 5-star linebacker, one of the nation's most coveted prospects. Good question from you here on why Vanderbilt for Nakobe Dean. Here is a little bit from Dean on that.
Why did you choose the one to Georgia in early October? For the Vanderbilt game, has that just worked out good for you? Or
It worked out good with my schedule with the team, we playing and everything, and won't have to be trying to rush or anything like that.
So obviously he says his schedule's very busy. He didn't have time for many more visits other than that game for Vanderbilt. But something else that Dean tells you in the midst of this conversation is it wasn't actually him who had set it up. It's actually his mom who had set that visit up. In fact, let you hear now Nakobe Dean explaining to Jeff Sintel who it was that sort of orchestrated this visit to UGA for that Vanderbilt game. Take a listen to this.
it's not a huge game, but was maybe that a consequence of that was maybe the only weekend you had free to take a visit to Georgia?
It was one of my only weekends. My mama really set it up to be honest. She just knew it was open, and she just said it over to coaches. I just came home and she told me about it.
So you just came home and she said, you're going to Georgia in October, right? Is that what you're like?
And she was like, would it be a good time? And I was like, yeah, sure.
So a couple questions for me, Jeff, come to mind on this, and maybe this is obvious to everybody else but me. Is this Vanderbilt game an official or an unofficial visit, first of all?
It's an official visit. It will be probably, I think, his fifth overall visit to Georgia. Of course, it's his first official. I think it's very interesting how things are changing now for Nakobe. His mother, basically a hat tip to her, his mother is a very organized lady. She's the president of the Touchdown Club for Horn Lakes in Mississippi. That's right outside the Memphis area. So she's a lady that's kind of very central to his recruiting. He says he's kind of sort of going to start thinking about this a little bit more and more as the weeks go by. But the relationship with Georgia, which used to be talking about life, talking about bigger picture things, is now kind of coming back to football.
Okay.
It's coming back to, schemes and little things that he can do to get off blocks, maybe to make himself a better player. He does like Georgia a lot. He does see, maybe the thing he's already noticing now is when he pictures himself at all of his targeted schools, he doesn't even think about the visits anymore because he knows the visits are going to be different.
And we'll hear him on that subject in a moment.
But he's also looking at a clip that we don't have. He's also looking for something. He's looking for the little things now, Brandon. He's not looking for the big jerseys or spectacles or commitments of playing time. He's looking for little things like student support, and he's also looking to see what it would be like should he be injured, or what would happen in his Georgia world away, or any other world away from football.
So Philip Sharp in our Facebook comment section, as a Georgia fan, says, I wouldn't hold my breath here on Nakobe Dean, apparently not sounding too optimistic about Dean ending up in Georgia's 2019 class. And I have to admit a couple things here, Jeff. I won't use any of this to make a prediction on Dean's eventual outcome for the class of 2019, but the fact that the Vanderbilt game is an official visit compared to an unofficial visit, I take as slightly bad news from the Georgia perspective. The fact that his mom schedules it instead of Dean, one of his only 5, what we think of as typically pretty precious events, official visits being scheduled by his mom instead of Dean. To a certain extent, I take that as slightly bad news. I'm not trying to tell you that it makes me worry about Dean. I don't know enough one way or another to worry. And I'm not telling you that this means he won't eventually end up in Georgia's class. But just in terms of preferences, you'd prefer it to be an unofficial visit, and you'd prefer it to be scheduled by Dean instead of Dean's mom, I think.
Well, I disagree, because I wish I could channel some Vince Vaughn from Wedding Crashers here and say erroneous on both counts. But I think the mother is a major stakeholder in his decision. She's, like I said before, she's the president of the Touchdown Club. She is president of the Booster Club. So she's very much a get it done, take charge lady, and she's also very central to his decision. And Kobe told me he would really like for his mom to agree with his decision about where he's going to go. But let me tell you, your little perspective here is really good here, because Nakobe told me that he doesn't even know where he's going to fit in the FSU visit right now because he has no time. He said if his schedule works out where Horn Lakes does what his goals are, which is to go to the state championship game in Mississippi, well, the following week he plays in the Alabama-Mississippi All-Star Classic. The next week after that would be finals. The next week after that would be the early signing period. His birthday, the early signing period's on December the 21st. And then he will go play in the Under Armour game. This woman has mapped out his life for the next 6 or 7 weeks. And basically the Vanderbilt game is the only time they could find for an official where they could get a Sunday in Athens. Another big thing to remember there is it is an official visit now. And he's been to Georgia already 4 or 5 times. And, comment sections are what they are. I don't know what people want to say other than, hey, man, just wait 4 months. I'm going to go to Georgia. I'm going to build up some suspense right now. There has to be some reporting and jockeying done here. But to me, my conversation I have with Nakobe Dean, it still seems to me like Georgia's very much in this thing.
I want you to hear one more clip from Jeff and Nakobe Dean coming up in just a moment. Before that, let me give you a comment from our YouTube comment section. Jeff, you'll like this one. One of our regular commenters is a guy named Bubby Dean. Bubby's a big UGA fan and a great supporter of us here around Dog Nation. His last name's also Dean. He says, we need some more Deans around Dog Nation. So here's Bubby Dean saying Nakobe Dean will be a nice addition into the UGA family for last name's sake alone.
I think there should be a sale on Jimmy Dean sausage or something that right now on your Kroger click list. But I mean, I get it. People want to see more flowery, hear more flowery things. But I mean, that's right out of the 5-star inside linebacker's mouth. Does like everything at Georgia, still calls the staff masterminds, and is looking towards the little things. He loves the competition factor at Georgia as well.
One of the things that Nakobe Dean also said in an interview with you, and I think this is incredibly insightful, it shows the evolution that a recruit can take over the course of months, that when you asked him how he would see himself fitting in at Georgia, he talks about the differences between the best foot forward being put forth on a visit and what real life is going to be like on campus. Here's some pretty introspective words from Nakobe Dean, the 5-star linebacker. Take a listen.
How would you envision yourself at Georgia? What do you think and what do you know that would be like right now?
I've been in Georgia a lot. I'm comfortable around the people, but when I get to college, it's going to be different than visits. I mean, I know it's going to be different than visits. I mean, I know I've probably been to school plenty of times, but I know it's going to be different when I get there and I start, hanging out with the guys, actually doing classes and working out. I just know it's going to be different. I know I'm going to get to meet more people, associate with more people, be out on my own and just grow with any college I pick.
By the way, Joe Brummel in our YouTube comment section says, why are y'all wearing matching sweater vests? Listen, I'm going to get this out of the way one time. Here we go. Here is the Step Brothers picture from the movie right there. There you go. There's the Step Brothers Will Ferrell movie moment for you right there.
Black sweater vest, silver gray sweater vest. And I'm going to say this one time. He always kids me. My man here always kids me about dressing up and wearing a tie.
Yeah, no tie today. At least we finally got this guy to dress down a little business casual for once.
So you know what? I know when I wear ties, I'm very, very unlikely to have a matching stepbrother in Brandon Adams. because he is not a dress for work, white collar.
Well, I don't mind dressing up. I just think for the purpose of this show, we're here to talk football. I'm not trying to apply for a loan here. I'm trying to talk about football. So we generally sort of dress in a little more sporty sense here. By the way, it's Before the Hedges presented by Kroger. That is Jeff Sintel, always sporty looking. My name is Brandon Adams, and as I said, we're presented by Kroger. And amid the excitement of football season, there's one way you can make sure you're a winner. The team may not always win, but you can be a winner with those perfect game day nibbling items that you can find only at your Kroger. Check that out. And by the way, don't forget to go to DogNation.com and register for your chance to win the Kroger Dog Nation Invasion giveaway to Baton Rouge. We're going to be lucky enough to be able to announce the winner on an upcoming edition of Before the Hedges here real soon. Let me shift gears on this. We're talking about Nakobe Dean a lot off the top of the show. Let's look here for a moment at where Dean kind of fits into the picture for Georgia in terms of its top 2019 targets still remaining here. Obviously, Dean is one of those guys, and Dean's not the only. Georgia's not the only school that has Dean on its list here. No pun intended. But here are the guys that Georgia we think is probably looking to chase down here. Jeff, take a look at this on the screen here. Of course, Tyreek Stevenson, the four-star defensive back from down in South Florida. Lewis Seen, the safety from Texas. Clay Webb, who you and I talked about at Dog Nation Daily a little earlier this week. The offensive lineman, the center from Alabama. It seems weird to think that Georgia could go into Saban's backyard and pull an offensive line, but maybe it could happen. Nakobe Dean, who we just talked about. You could probably add Khair Elam into a discussion like this. These are really, when you think about Georgia, who's done a lot of work for its 2019 class already, these are names, though, that we're still going to talk a lot about between now and December, or maybe even one of the two of these names into February as well.
Yeah, I think if you look at that full screen, I think Khair Elam's name definitely needs to be on there as well, but you see a couple of trends. Number one, you see the defensive backfield. One of the things that you see on the Georgia roster is they have such a prevalence of scholarship players at the defensive back spot, at cornerback, and also at safety. And you basically see Georgia needs 3 more guys, potentially 2 more guys to fill out the 2019 class, and the Bulldogs would sure like to do that with those elite defensive back targets. I think Stevenson probably is number 1, and then Sign and Elam. Elam's probably right there, maybe a nudge below Stevenson as well. 2 South Florida DBs as well. And I think if everybody starts pontificating about maybe an ideal close to the Georgia class, which it seems like this program closes with mostly all the groceries that are on their click list, let's say, I think that would be the ideal close to the class. For Georgia at least. Brandon, what would be the ideal close to your class? Right?
Yeah, listen, I'd love to have guys like that. I agree with Dog Life here in the YouTube comment section, who mentions Lewis Seen. He says, you got to feel good about him right now. And I haven't read anything from you at DogNation.com or really any of the other internet chatter that's kind of out there about changing that. And that's one of those guys, I guess, you're sort of hoping to get sooner rather than later to sort of set the momentum in place for some of these other guys as well. It sounds like Dean may be one of those names you wait on a while. I guess you're sort of hoping that Seen may fall into place a little sooner than that?
Yeah, Seen, to set the stage on Seen, I resisted the urge to say set the scene there on Seen.
Yeah.
But to set the stage on Seen, I think what you're looking for there is he's going to do 2 things. These things happen, and I hold these truths to be self-evident. Number 1 is he needs to take his official visit to the University of Georgia for the Tennessee game. That thing is planned. Even Ryan Trouble Davis, his good buddy on several official visits to other programs, is going to make sure he takes an unofficial to kind of be the wingman for the Bulldogs to kind of shepherd that recruitment in the direction he wants it to go. Second thing is after that is he's going to take an official visit to Florida. And then after that, after those final 2 official visits, we're talking mid-October, late October right there. That's when Lewis Seen will be ready to make his decision.
By the way, in YouTube, BA's daddy says he thinks we look dapper with our matching, or at least somewhat. Maybe they're rhyming. Not matching, but sort of rhyming sweater vest. Thanks, BA's daddy, on that. I appreciate it.
BA's dad.
That's his face. That's his YouTube comment name. Papa Doc 19 asked a more serious question, though. He says, is Khair Elam a realistic option for Georgia right now? And I think, in fairness here, this probably comes on the heels of DJ Daniel choosing South Carolina over Georgia, and that probably opened the door for Elam probably a little bit more than it would have been had Daniel taken the Georgia offer, or what?
I think it's kind of like everything looked good at the top of the board for Georgia, and I wish I could have just answered that question by saying, that thing is real, Brandon.
Those of you that watch or listen to Dog Nation Daily, you'll remember Jeff kind of dropping that line in on Clay Webb a little earlier in the show.
Yeah,
or earlier in the week, I should say.
So he's a 4-star defensive back. He's another guy that has been long rumored to go to those stinking Florida Gators. I'll quote Brandon Adams' book of knowledge right there. But Ohio State was once in the mix. Georgia is now in the mix as well, because every time he goes to Georgia, every interaction he has with the staff, it comes off very positive. I'd be very interested to see how many times Kaiir Elam makes it up to Athens this season as well.
Keith Wilson asking you about a 5-star running back from California you wrote about earlier this week at DogNation.com. That's Kendall Milton. We'll actually hear from Milton on today's show a little later on before the Hedges presented by Kroger. Before we change the channel on this subject and hear from the latest UGA commit, Jamil Burroughs, very busy show for us here today, let me also mention something else that Dog Life said on the YouTube comment section. You brought up what we talked about Clay Webb earlier in the week on Dog Nation Daily, and Webb, or I should say Dog Life on YouTube says, listen, I just want to see Georgia get Clay Webb just to stick it to Alabama. And I have to admit that as a Georgia fan, I am indeed one. I think that Georgia could have a real use for Clay Webb, especially at the center position. Even though Georgia's deep there with the interior offensive line, it's nice to have as many good ones as you can get. But the number one reason I'm interested in Clay Webb right now is I do like sticking at Alabama, man. I like watching those Alabama fans squirm.
All right, Brandon, now, your motives are not pure there.
Not at all.
That's going to create some
Not at all.
You're throwing some bad juju out there in the universe right there, Brandon. All I'm going to say is Georgia's chances. I mean, Clay Webb, when you look at that, I mean, I want to say this, he's a luxury item for Georgia. They don't really need another center/guard interior lineman. I mean, maybe they need them like the typical Georgia fan needs another red polo shirt for game day or something like that. But I will say this, that it's another way for Georgia, look at a lot of positions, for them to be pretty locked and loaded and pretty dapper, let's say, at a certain position. But then at the next recruiting class, they find another player that kicks them a notch above what they had previously. And it's just stacking up that depth. And I'll use a before the Hedges key word right now. They're stacking it up like cordwood, man. Yeah,
no doubt about it. So obviously, in some form or fashion, I'll probably ask you about this really every week. But when you look at these names that are out there, Stevenson seems like a realistic possibility. Elam now sounds like that's a realistic possibility. Seen to go along with that duo in the defensive backfield. Webb, I guess we'll wait and see. Nakobe Dean, you know, that's sort of an interesting one to discuss. You see some other names you can go after, guys like Jamie Robbins and things like that. You know, is that battle for number one class with Alabama? I mean, is Georgia still in that? Obviously, the conventional wisdom is Alabama can sign a larger number of recruits, which ultimately is what's going to determine who ends up being ranked number one. But, I mean, how in it for that number one class is Georgia? Because I feel the same way about that. Ultimately, is there a huge difference between being number one and number two? There may not be, but there's kind of a cachet about being number one again.
Okay, don't talk out of both sides of your mouth, sir. How can you have... You want to stick it to Alabama for Clay Webb, but then you also want to stick it to Alabama for the number one ranking.
Oh, I want to do both. Listen, you want to talk about popping champagne corks? If Georgia got to be number one 2 years in a row in recruiting, and the recruit that put Georgia over the top was a center from Oxford, Alabama, in the shadow of Bryant-Denny Stadium, you better believe that on Dog Nation Daily, and at least on this half of the desk here before the Hedges, would be popping the Cristal, the Dom Perignon, whatever y'all want.
Will you wear a tie that day if that happens, Brandon?
You know what, I will. I'll wear a tie, I'll wear a pocket square, I'll do the whole deal.
You'll be going out for a bank loan, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'll be applying for a job. I'm going to be applying for jobs soon enough anyway.
So what I think about all that is, I think it's nice to think about all those recruits matriculating to Georgia and cinching the number one class. But I think there's another factor to look at there. The other factor there is how much room Georgia will have in the class. They don't have 26 available scholarships for 2019 yet. It may be Georgia does everything it possibly could reel in all the targets in the boat it wants to, but then the number sticks at 23 or 24 because there's not a lot of guys either going pro or moving on out of the program to another destination. So that's something to really watch there as well. It's not just how well Georgia recruits, but it's how many spots open up for all those maybe interested parties in the class of 2019.
I promise we're going to hear from Jamil Burroughs in a minute. Jeff had a great interview with Burroughs. You actually get to see that here in just a second. Let me do a comment on this, though. Philip Jordan Wells, we're talking about top four targets, and then we started, we showed a graphic that had some other names. And Philip, says, hey, Jamie Robbins is a pretty interesting name. This is a guy that, transferred, from Crisp County, which is a school that's produced a lot of major talent as of late, ends up at Lee County, which is also a school that's produced a lot of major talent as of late. Ironically, Lee County and Crisp County are two schools that Georgia has somewhat mixed results with. If you want to look at the class of 2017 compared to the class of 2018, which makes Robinson sort of an interesting name, especially when you look at how he might fit in to the Tyreek Stevenson, storyline, Kiara Elam as well.
Very interesting. It's almost like 6 degrees of Georgia recruiting, how maybe Crisp County can get rid of the bad juju from the year before with Marcavius Big Cat Bryant with Quay Walker, and then a player who leaves Crisp County can then go to Lee County and then extend a broken winning streak from Aubrey Solomon to Otis Reese, now to another player in Jamie Robinson. Robinson is a heck of a player, but it seems like Georgia has contingencies upon contingencies there. He's a guy that makes a lot of plays. I often refer to him as maybe a 700 series Jamias Williams, just a bigger, elite, luxury item type player, especially skill guy. I mean, Jamie Robinson can make a play for you in coverage with a big hit, running the ball, catching a pass, taking a pick, forcing a fumble, returning a punt, returning a kickoff. He can even throw the ball still a country mile out there in Leesburg as well. So, I mean, Georgia's 2019 class, it's very interesting how what the remaining targets look like. And, I don't think we've had a show yet until we can talk about Clay Webb, or we can talk about Jaden Hazelwood, or we can talk about flip candidates. I do think when you look at Georgia's class, though, you see little things happen. Zion Logue picks up a 4th star. I think he will move up to a 4th star eventually. Are there any, precarious guys on that class where, flip candidates might happen? I think for the most part, and I won't name the names, but I think for the most part, I only see maybe 2 or 3 guys that may or may not be a part of this class.
Okay, so I do want to ask you about that. I'm going to try to combine a few of the comments into one here, because I really think this top remaining targets thing is something we ought to check in on every single week, at least updates with whatever movement there may be. In some weeks there may not be a lot of movement with these guys, but at least sort of check in when they are. And I think sort of a general consensus question I'm getting from our Facebook comment section is this only going to include uncommitted players? In other words, if you're really ranking Georgia's true top 5 or top remaining targets, are you putting committed players on there, like a Hinton, at the risk of just opening up a can of worms, maybe a Popo? I mean, if you're really looking at top remaining targets, would these be them, or is this only what it is if you restrict it to uncommitted players?
Well, okay, we haven't had Owen Papo come up in a while, so that's interesting. Mr. Papo, I still believe that commitment is rock solid to Auburn. I don't know how we can kind of show all those highlights of Nakobe Dean and then have people wonder about the sniff test, about whether he's legitimately interested in Georgia, and then have somebody come back down to the Owen Papo trail. Papo and Hinton, everybody likes to bring up those names, and those are very great players. But I think the stimuli, which will be the change agent for their decision, just hasn't happened yet. I mean, Auburn will have to perform badly, Michigan will have to perform badly, which would cause them to reconsider what they feel are pretty solid decisions right now. I think when we're looking at those top 5 targets and we're looking at the top remaining targets for Georgia, I think maybe the big updates, I even saw one on that page that we did just a week or so ago, was even Nakobe Dean. Nakobe Dean has moved his timeline up now from normally on his birthday, which is December the 13th, to now maybe that first day of the national early signing period, which is December the 21st. And funny little thing about Nakobe, he gave me another little nugget. He said silent commitments are not his thing. When he wants to let people know he's committed, he's going to let the world know. But he also said this, and the 18-year-old guy that maybe wants to stick it to the man inside of us all would appreciate this comment. He said, I'm going to make that staff I commit to sweat a little bit, because when I get to college, they're going to make me sweat a lot. So they're going to have to find out my decision on National Early Signing Day with everybody else on the live feed.
I will admit, I don't like the idea of the Georgia coaches being the ones asked to sweat, but I don't mind that thought process from Nakobe Dean, because it only seemed like turnabout being fair play, and there's certainly plenty of 2019 recruits, and you know the names that I'm thinking of here that seem pretty intent on making coaches sweat at the moment. That's Jeff Sintel. My name is Brandon Adams. This is Before the Hedges, presented by Kroger. We got football kicking off this weekend. I can't always promise you Georgia will be a winner every Saturday, but I can promise you you'll be a winner when you get your game day nibbling taken care of right there at your local Kroger. So check that out, and also make sure if you haven't registered already for our Kroger Dog Nation Invasion giveaway to Baton Rouge, make sure you do that. I'm really excited about announcing the winner coming up very soon episode of Before the Hedges presented by Kroger. Would love to see it be you and a guest. So go register for your chance to win there at dognation.com, and you may have a chance to do just that.
One thing, I'm watching some comment streams, and everybody's talking about Harry Miller. I think Harry Miller is still solid with Ohio State.
Yeah, especially after the comments from his mom. Wow.
And maybe then every week we have to say this, our checkdowns, which is the natural plan B for Harry Miller is not Georgia, it's Stanford. Another thing to consider there, I know everybody just kind of looks at those highest rated guys. And another thing to think about there as well is, you look at all these guys and everybody wants these names coming through as well, but that's a class, and I'm going to hold off that point right now.
Please.
We need to get to Jamil Burroughs.
We do, because on Saturday I thought Georgia added a great player to its 2020 class. It's a name that you've been running about a lot. I've been fascinated by. Jamil Burroughs from McGee High School. He made it official on his mom's birthday. What a great way to honor his mom, and a great way for Georgia to keep the momentum rolling with its 2020 class. I already like Burroughs. I'm sure you do too. But after his interview with Jeff, you'll like him even more. Take a look at this right now.
If I would have asked you when you were 12 years old where you want to play college football, if you could play anywhere in the world, what would you have said?
It would have been Alabama.
Why?
When I was 12, I went to the camp, and the first person to talk to me and give me advice and stuff like that, told me they're gonna start recruiting me, was Kirby Smart. And from there, I just knew I wanted to be one of my coaches.
So if Kirby was still at Alabama, where would you be right now?
I probably would be Alabama right now. And
So-
I believe by the time I get there, they would have 2 national championships.
2 of them, huh?
Yes, sir.
How are they going to win 2 before you get there? Is that going to be run game, throw game, everything? What?
Mixture of all.
So Big Julian, when did he know you were heading, and what was his reaction?
I think he knew when I had finally committed 3 weeks ago. I think Coach Trey told him.
Did he reach out to you?
He didn't reach out to me yet, but when I went down there, he was jumping around and stuff like that. He was excited and stuff like that.
You're smiling really big. Obviously,
Oh yeah,
he's a
because
big
that's my feeling, man. When people in Powder Springs, they compare me and Julian a lot. I wear the number, I'm big just like him, and my goal really is to be better than him, do more than he did in high school.
Can you put your finger on the final straw? What was the final thing that pushed Georgia over the top?
Connection. Finally realized, these type of coaches I want to be around, helping me get better at my position and stuff like that.
It was probably, I don't know, maybe it was last year. You were at a game, and I like to take pictures of guys with my long lens up in the stands.
Yep.
And the look on your face was like, what everybody says, get you a girl that looks at you, get you somebody that looks at you the way Jamil looks at Georgia or something like that.
Yeah.
I could tell that was already, you were just sitting there going like.
I was just admiring the atmosphere. The atmosphere is crazy.
That kind of like you falling in love with the chance to play at Georgia right there?
Yeah.
It was?
Probably the only person that recognized that.
I can see it.
I love my mama. Mama, I love you. And she's just so proud of me.
Where would you be without her? What if you had a 2-star mom?
It's really hard. It's really hard to think about, because it's hard to think about having a mom like that. Really don't know where I would be. Really don't know.
Favorite food in the world to eat?
Wings. Hot wings.
Hot wings? How many can you eat at one time?
At one time?
Yeah.
10.
Only 10 at one time?
Yeah.
Best movie you've ever seen?
Friday.
Favorite pair of shoes?
Nike.
Nike guy?
Yes, sir.
If you go out on a date with any woman in the world, who would it be?
Rihanna.
Rihanna, huh?
Call me.
If you could, if you scored a touchdown and end zone dances were allowed, what would you bust out? Would you be a guy that had an end zone dance or what?
Should I show you?
Show me, man.
Actually, it would be, everybody know my dance. I do a whole lot of dances and stuff like that. So I probably,
you go to Ray Lewis, huh?
Yeah, so like that. So
We
like
call it the Jamil, right?
Yeah.
Very good, very good. You remember when he offered you? Who offered you for Georgia? Was it Coach Scott or was it?
It was Coach Smart. He had put me into the weight room at the camp after my freshman year. He was like, how big are you? And I told him and stuff like that. He said, well, you got your offer. I was like, wow, that was really amazing. My dream school was my first offer.
All right, guys, Dog Nation, that's a good meet and greet with Jamil Burroughs. Everybody calls you Jamil, right?
Just a big meal, you know. Or JB, you know, I got a lot of nicknames.
JB the Freak, right?
Yep, JB the Freak. Go Dogs.
Thanks, Jamil. Appreciate your time, sir.
Yes, sir.
What an amazing interview with Jamil Burroughs there. I love the comments coming in to our Facebook comment section here on Before the Hedges, presented by Kroger. Kevin Jones says, way to go, Jamil. Kevin Chapman says, one of my favorite recruits after that interview, so genuine. And Jeff, I got to say as well, I'm really impressed by the personality, and I'll be the first to tell you that oftentimes I don't take enough time to sort of get to know these kids personally. I'm a little bit more interested in the specs from time to time. I'm just being completely honest with that. But when you see a guy like that who seems to be living every minute of his life and loving every moment of it, that's really cool. And listen, when I was a junior in high school, and as crazy it is to think, that's what Jamil Burroughs is. He's still just a junior in high school. First of all, I wasn't that athletic, but I also wasn't as poised as he comes across there. This seems like an unusually rare specimen in terms of able to handle all of this, and the little, kind of the Ray Lewis moves there at the end, not bad either.
6'3", 315. He's actually 6'3 and a half. And it's kind of funny when you ask him about his end zone dance, and he's like, "You want me to show you?"
Yeah.
That's a guy that is not lacking for motivation or just, I call it fun, having fun, finding the joy in life. Obviously, he credited his mom on that. He thanked his mom a lot. He committed on her birthday, which was August the 25th.
Classy move.
He actually silently committed about 3 weeks prior to that. He actually was up in that reveal, and he's like, "Oh man, I want to commit. I want to commit. I want to commit." And he was like, "I'm not going to be the guy that commits, and I'm not going to be the guy that commits." 2 days later, he silently commits, and he says, "We'll tell the world, Mom," on August 25th.
Well, here's what's funny. So he commits on his mom's birthday, August 25th. Zamir White committed on his mom's birthday a year ago, June 27th. I can't remember my own wife's birthday, my own wife's anniversary. I'm going to know the birthday of every mom of every Georgia player on the roster in a couple of years. I mean, it's really crazy how that works out, but it kind of is.
Everybody's going to start remembering those mothers. Remember how revered Champ and Roland and Boss Bailey's mother was in the 90s? I mean, I remember a game where it was a Vanderbilt game, and some Georgia fans had unfurled a banner on one sideline, and it said, "God bless you, Ma Bailey." And I'm not quite sure if it says, "Do you have any more sons?" ?
Right.
But I mean, you see the good picture a couple weeks back of all the Georgia moms that were on Facebook. All the moms were there for one of the scrimmage games, and they all took a picture in that new West End Zone recruiting lounge. And let's face it, it still works in recruiting. It still works in big-time college football. Mama's not happy. Nobody's happy.
All right, coming up in just a moment, somebody asked in the comment section about five-star running back for the class of 2020, Kendall Milton from California. We'll actually hear from Milton live on Before the Hedges, presented by Kroger. Before that, though, I like Trip Davidson's comment about Jamil Burroughs in the Facebook comment section, that he's a smart kid with a great personality, yet comes across that way. And by the way, wait till you hear Milton in just a moment. He comes across as just real intelligent, real sharp for also a very young man as well. You'll like that from Kendall Milton. But let me make one more point on Jamil Burroughs to you before we move off. If you'll remember on Tuesday on Dog Nation Daily, you and I were talking about the proper weight for Burroughs. Some of the recruiting services had him at like 280. You said you have a very good weight on him at about 315. But you also say you think he plays at Georgia somewhere around like, say, 305.
I think so.
Which is kind of interesting. I don't know if you caught this week, but on Monday, Kirby Smart was talking to his defensive line. He was talking about, like he always does, needs more depth there. But he also mentioned the fact that the new defensive lineman has got to be able to run side to side. Definitely. This is not all, Terrence Cody, the old Alabama defensive lineman, just swallowing up two offensive linemen in the middle. You got to have some of that lateral quickness as well. And we've shown the film that you were able to capture of Jamil Burroughs going back to the Corky Kell Classic. And when I heard Kirby this week talking about that need for lateral quickness from his defensive lineman, Burroughs, even though he's still 2 years away from being on that Athens campus, he is a name that sort of came to mind for me there.
He is. He kind of fits that mold. And, this is a big money week for NFL. It used to be NFL, I thought the NFL would pay for the years to come, but not the years behind you. But you look at Aaron Rodgers today, you look at Geno Atkins yesterday, you look at Aaron Donald, which probably might be coming down the tracks. Geno Atkins just signed a monster contract where he's getting like $38 million within the next 2 years. Brandon, that's like your Marco's Pizza deal there right now, man. That's really humming along. And, the defensive line guys, Kirby, if he ever says something like, I'm very satisfied with my defensive line, everything's going great, worry about that, because that guy can never get enough 5 stars or really strong players on the defensive line. One thing I want to make sure everybody gets right now, and if you were ever worried about the defensive line and what's going on, continue worrying, my friends, because that is a shelf in Butts-Mehre and in the new indoor practice facility that definitely needs to get restocked, and soon, over the next 3 recruiting cycles.
I think we'll have more on that coming up with Jeff. 6-pack of questions for you, the Before the Hedges viewer. Before the Hedges presented by Kroger. That's Jeff Sintel. My name is Brandon Adams. Don't forget, in our comment section, drop your question, drop your comment, and as we do each and every week here on Before the Hedges presented by Kroger, we'll look for the best, or at least the one that we choose. Jeff's the chooser on this one. It's our Before the Hedges How About Them Groceries giveaway. We give away a $50 gift card courtesy of Kroger every week here on Before the Hedges. We'll do that coming up. I've got some great comments rolling in, some of which that I've read, some of which we're going to try to get to before we're done, and there's still plenty of room for you to get more of those comments, including with Jeff's 6-pack here coming up in just a minute. Many of you are asking about that stable coming back, and this week on Before the Hedges it does. But before any of that, let's talk about 5-star running backs. There is nothing that I believe I like talking about more than 5-star running backs, especially when they like Georgia as much as Kendall Milton from California seems to. And I guess, Jeff, before you hear from Milton on this, I'm just going to give up the argument on in-state. I reckon that now Georgia's just national recruiting, and it's California one year, it's Pennsylvania, for the class of 2017. I guess that Georgia is just a national recruiting power now, and if it means 5-star running backs, who am I to complain about that? I have been the biggest flag waver for let's recruit in-state if you're Georgia first, and then take care of your needs out of state. Georgia seems very content to sort of throw a blanket over the entire country. Who might argue with the results?
I tell you, we're reaching a time, and maybe it would be what a time to be alive for recruiting fans, but there's going to be I'm going to make up a hypothetical guy called Joe Stud. He's a running back out of Dunwoody. He's the nation's number 8 running back in the country. He's maybe the preseason AJC Super 11. He may be Mr. Football in the state of Georgia. Not guaranteed to go to the University of Georgia anymore. Might wind up at Auburn, might wind up at Florida State, might even wind up at Alabama, because Georgia has its eyes set on the top 1, 2, 3 running backs every year, it seems like.
And those top running backs apparently have their eyes set on Georgia as well. It's far from a done deal when it comes to Kendall Milton. He's got a lot of suitors, but he really likes the pitch that he's getting from UGA. He explained to Jeff Sintel why. Take a listen to this.
I think Georgia has a major shot in being able to get me to go to their program. I love the whole school. I love Coach Smart. I love Coach McGee. I love Coach Williams. They're all great people, great guys, great coaches, and I can see myself playing at the next level. They produce lots of running backs for the NFL, like they produced 2 last year, and it'd be great to be able to pick up where they left off and be able to get something going.
Boy, I mean, he comes across as just a real sharp guy there, able to articulate in no uncertain terms what it is that he likes about Georgia. Coming up in a moment, we'll hear his specific thoughts on Dell McGee and his specific thoughts on Kirby Smart there. But this is a guy that's clearly kind of already done his homework on UGA, despite the vast geographic distance between where he lives now and where he might one day call his college home.
So check that film. I think this is one of those rare running backs for me that just checks every box. He's got the size. He's about 6'2.5", 6'1.5", 215. 10.8 in the 100 meters. I love the way he's physical. He seeks contact. There's a thing out there that I like to look for when I scout running backs. And it sounds a little bit like this guy in a flat-footed basketball league. What I call a scorer's mentality. When I see a back run the ball, I want to see that running back just ravenous, having to get in that end zone. Like every fiber of their being thinks, I'm going to score on every play. Kendall Milton has that about his game. He's also got great pedigree. His uncle, Kevin Hardy, was the number 2 overall pick in the 1996 NFL draft out of Illinois. He was his uncle was a Butkus Award winner. His older brother is a scholarship player at Fresno State. Another neat little thing, Bulldog fans, and I guess this might be the mood today. They're thinking, oh, that guy's too far away. I don't know if Georgia's going to get this guy. Does know Nolan Smith quite well. Those guys were playing back together in All-American games when they were in the 7th and 8th grade together. He does like everything about Georgia's tradition. He told me they checked every box. Likes Kirby Smart a lot. And the one thing he said is, slow your roll, folks. if you're reading all these innuendos or these stories about, oh, this guy's going to go to Ohio State, or this guy might wind up in Oklahoma where he has a lot of his close friends and family friends there or associates there, he tells me the decision's not made. He's not going to do a lot of visiting because all the schools he likes are far away from Fresno and expensive. And this young man, I think, has family in Alabama, Maryland, Indiana, Ohio, Arizona, Texas, Florida, Alabama. He's got family all over, so he doesn't mind about distance one iota. And very interesting to watch him.
While he may not be blood related to Georgia running backs coach Dell McGee, certainly they seem to strike a bit of a familial vibe here. Milton talked to you a little bit more about what it is that he likes specifically about the Georgia running backs coach, who's already had great success with plenty of other five-star running backs. Here is Milton on McGee.
Talking to Coach McGee, it doesn't feel like you're just talking to a coach. It feels like you're talking to a friend or somebody that you can actually open up to, talk to. He has kind of like a housewarming feel when you talk to him, so that's one thing that separates him from all the other coaches.
Brian Kephart in our YouTube comment section says Dell McGee is going to do what he does best, and this kid's going to be wearing the G on the side of his helmet. No one is out of Dell McGee's reach, and I reckon I've sort of come to believe the same thing. While I don't know a lot about Kendall Milton's recruitment as of yet, I know that Dell McGee can go into Louisiana and get John Emery Jr. If you can do that, there's nothing to say you couldn't go into California and get Kendall Milton. I think that he is just maybe the top position coach in the entire country, with all due respect to guys like Sam Pittman and Glenn Schumann and Dan Lanning and James Coley are also worthy of consideration on that. I mean, McGee is just sort of living off a very well-earned reputation by this point.
Kendall Milton said when he talks to Coach McGee, it sounds to him like there's a friendship vibe there, that he's really invested in his life. It also seems very housewarming. That's what he referred to as. He just said Dell, like a lot of coaches that are out there, they strike a certain special bond with him. And I'm going to tell you, I liked a lot of backs. I was looking at the best backs in the country for 2020, maybe 2 years ago, maybe a year and a half ago. And I thought the best back in the country was Zachary Evans out of Texas until I saw that kid's film and I saw the way it almost looks like when he's tackled, he's like, what happened? How did I go down? What's going wrong? You see the way he runs. He told me his favorite play to run is the counter play because he loves all the action and everything going back and forth to misread a defense.
I will say this, and I want to go off on a tangent here. I think one of the cool things about Dell McGee is he's able to strike that sort of friendship vibe with a guy like Milton without having to trade any of his credibility as a grown man coach, without getting into too many other details. We've seen a lot of coaches diminish themselves at the position coach level because of their behavior. Dell McGee is as dignified and great of on-field coach as you can be, and yet he's still able to sort of develop a relationship with recruits like Milton. It's really cool to see Georgia's coaches be able to do sort of both prongs of what I think the job of a coach in college football is.
I agree with everything you say right there. And one thing I'd like to, let's try this, Brandon. In honor of what this guy's already done so far on the recruiting trail, let's adopt a before the hedges or maybe a Dog Nation daily tradition. Right. We like to tell stories. We like to identify these players as humans, but we also like to have fun. So now, perhaps every time Dell McGee lands a marquee recruit, is the catchphrase or the slogan instead of the daily or the dilly, what about if everybody around Dog Nation, especially around these parts, what if they just say Dell yes?
I like that. I really like that.
Does anybody like Dell yes? Let us know in the comment section if that Dell yes can become a thing. Might be a very good T-shirt one day.
I was thinking the same thing. Y'all know I think in T-shirts. Dell yes has a look of a T-shirt that could be very popular around Dog Nation here very soon. Somebody else that will look great on a T-shirt is Georgia's former five-star lineman Jamari Salyer, who may make his debut coming up this Saturday. We'll give you a very close film look at Salyer with our buddy Mike Johnson here coming up in just a moment. Before that, though, we just heard from Kendall Milton, the five-star running back from California, on what he likes about Dell McGee. He's also done his homework on Georgia coach Kirby Smart as well. It's kind of funny. You know, Smart is only now going into his third year on the field as Georgia coach, but he's already developed quite a Wikipedia page, so to speak, quite a resume here, and Kendall Milton has noticed that, and here's what he told you about it.
Just seeing his history, seeing his past, he seems like a great guy. It seems like with his coaching record, it seems like he knows what he's doing. He has a strong reputation for winning, getting his team to those big games, and everybody wants to be able to get to the national championship, and I feel like he's a coach that can bring his team to that, so that's a big thing.
you will be very happy to know that Dell, yes, is taking off in the comment section in quite a big way, whether it be Larry Delbridge, Craig Wyatts, Kevin Jones, Robert Barnes. Let me get a few more names here. Jeff Galt, Michael Banks, Dell, Anthony Schumann, Keith Finney. People love Dell, yes. Jeff, you have done it again, my friend.
Maybe we can sell some T-shirts.
You have done it again, my friend. And, as I said before, it is kind of cool there. Kirby Smart is not the rookie head coach anymore, right? I mean, he's not quite a stately veteran yet either. But, boy, when you go to the playoff, you play a Rose Bowl in Milton's home state of California, at that point in time, you got a little bigger cachet to your name than you had before. And Milton seems to be noticing.
And, this is just like, you want to say the term nexus or perfect storm. Just look at all these things that are linking up. The Rose Bowl win, Sony Michel and Nick Chubb going to the NFL in this draft year, both top 35 picks. A gentleman by the name of Todd Gurley creating headlines seemingly every week in the NFL in California as well. I mean, Georgia's footprint. I know everybody got their little commentary on when Georgia pulled John Emery out of Louisiana, but anybody on social media that wants to push that trash out there, they can. But if there's one position where the University of Georgia should take whatever's on the table, it should be the running back position.
And maybe the other position group like that right now is one of Dell McGee's partners, which is Georgia offensive line coach Sam Pittman, who's also had great success on the recruiting trail, much like McGee has. And some of the groceries that Pittman's been shopping for over the last couple of years, they could be on display this Saturday in Athens as Georgia opens the 2018 season against Austin Peay. One of those guys could be Jamari Salyer. Now, you may have an opinion about how much we could see Salyer on Saturday. I'll look forward to hearing you on that. But when we finally do see him, what's it going to look like? I thought that you recently, as a part of the series we're calling Real Talk here on Before the Hedges, presented by Kroger, had a great conversation with a guy that knows the offensive line positions very well. Our buddy Mike Johnson, the former SEC All-American. Mike likes a lot of what he's seen from Salyer on film. You set the conversation up really well. If you're looking forward to Salyer's debut, this will get you even more excited. Take a listen.
All right, guys, special Before the Hedges main course film treat here. Golden Corral of highlights, you might say. Mike Johnson, we're chopping up Jamari Salyer, 5-star signee already at Georgia. First impressions of the guy when you started watching him on film?
Really elite core strength. And, you don't talk about core strength a lot when you talk about offensive linemen, but his core strength, his ability to really get his hips rolled and also extend his arms at the same time, that is tough to do for a high school football player. This guy already has it built in when he shows up at Georgia.
All right, let's jump into that film right now. And Mike, first thing here from me is what separates him from maybe even a very good prospect in your eyes?
Well, and that's the thing. And I'm going to go back to the core strength because that's what's incredible about this player. You have guys that say have strong lower bodies or strong upper bodies. Some of those guys can bench press but can't move their legs. Some of those guys can move their legs all day but can't get separation. He's got it both. I mean, he kind of has that clean and jerk appeal of an offensive lineman to where he really can get those legs kind of extended and straightened out and also in the same punch use his arms to get separation. It's incredibly talented for a guy his age to be able to do that. You don't usually see that until 3 or 4 years into college.
It seems like we're always talking about this with these Georgia signees on the offensive line. That's adaptability. Could he be a center? Could he be a guard? What does Mike Johnson say?
I've seen him get some snaps in some of these clips, and I think he could be a center. I mean, he's going to be one of those guys that probably has to work on his snaps. But from a cerebral standpoint, I don't see any reason why this guy can't step right into the middle of an offensive line and take charge. He seems like a guy who's a very smart player, very physical player. That's what you're looking for in a center at the next level. I think that's a seamless transition for him.
I try not to dabble in hyperbole too much, Mike, but when I see Jamari Salyer, when I covered him for the last 3 years, I thought to myself, this is what a 10-year NFL veteran should look like in high school. Tell me if you see anything different from that.
No, I don't. And he reminds me with a guy that I played with at Alabama, Chance Warmack, who was a 10th overall pick. He's one of those guys that just it's almost like he's a big guy and you want to say he's fat, but then you see some like abs in there in his belly. He's one of those guys that just really next level strength. I mean, you can see on some of these highlight films that he is just a big, rock solid kid. And to be able to move like he does along with that, it's just something you don't see very often. That's what does make him an elite player.
How are you going to get a young guy like this? And then maybe how will a talented kid like this close the window on maybe any weaknesses he has as he matures in college?
Well, you're going to have to game plan against a guy like this. He's strong. He has good knee bend. He plays with good leverage. He plays with, his butt down. He can move side to side. So you set him up. You try to game plan if you're some of these guys. You say, okay, you know what? He's really comfortable on the bull rush. Well, let me see if I can move side to side and get him uncomfortable. But there's nothing that he does in his game that I think is a weakness at this point. I mean, watching him on film, he's got, some things he's got to work on as far as consistency goes, but just jumping right in, you're going to use his physical talent right off the bat when he shows up in Athens.
All right, guys, Jamari Salyer, the 5-star signee, nation's #1 offensive guard for a reason. We just did some real talk here on Before the Hedges.
All right, really good stuff there. Real Talk, Mike Johnson breaking down Jamari Salyer. And, as far as Salyer this Saturday, I wouldn't expect him to be a starter. It sounds like what's going on at camp thus far. Kendall Baker may be likely to hold on to that left guard spot at least for week 1. But my assumption is Salyer probably plays. Now, which position does he play at may still be yet to be decided. But I mean, or how do you get the read on what's going to happen with Salyer?
So I've heard a lot of things about Salyer. I've heard him working at center. I've seen him a lot of the times when the media gets their viewing. Our guys tell me that he's with the third team. But you also see a lot of unique things happening. And I think Pittman's plan is to look at Georgia for November and to build towards November when they play those big ball games. But I think Kendall Baker might even evolve into a super sub where he might be the guy that gives relief to guys at right guard, maybe left tackle, right tackle.
Which is what Dyshawn Sims did a year ago.
Exactly. And then, Pittman told us even at the media day during the national playoffs last year, if all things are being equal, he's going to choose the young guy because the young guy will just continue to get better. Right. And you can kind of bank a lot of that experience. But with Jamari, you've heard me say this a million times, it is only a matter of when, not if he becomes a dominant lineman at Georgia.
And then before we do our 6-pack of questions, I'll say one more point on this, that, because of the rules there at Pace Academy, which is the school that Salyer attended, you're not allowed to be an early enrollee. Last year, Andrew Thomas made it look very easy transitioning as a summer arriving freshman to a starter alongside Georgia's offensive line. With all due respect, I don't know that is as easy as Thomas made it look like a year ago. So I agree with you. By the end of the season, I think that Salyer's almost for sure a starter for Georgia's offensive line, but maybe only in sort of that category of making his debut this Saturday.
I think Thomas was really, really good, but I think Thomas was also an opportunist where he walked into a depth chart that still doesn't have a whole lot of tackles. It was much easier for Thomas to break through and start at tackle than it would have been for Salyer even to walk in and start last year at guard or even this year at guard or center. Georgia's kind of loaded right there.
All right, it's Before the Hedges presented by Kroger. That's Dog Nation's recruiting insider Jeff Sintel. My name's Brandon Adams. We got more of your questions and comments coming as part of our broadcast. We've also got our Kroger How About Them Groceries giveaway coming up of a $50 gift card for the comment or question that Jeff selects here before we're all said and done. And, of course, one of the staples from your old Wednesday show was the 6-pack of questions that you kind of throw out there. People were saying, hey, can we bring the 6-pack back for the brand new Before the Hedges? And we said, absolutely we can. So we got a couple minutes left here before we have to sign off. So why don't you fire off some of your 6-pack of questions, and we'll see what we can do to kind of answer some of these.
I wish I had the Brandon Adams, the syrupy, the great salesman, toothpaste, polished voice. But let's right now take time to open a 6-pack with Before the Hedges.
I like that. Absolutely.
First one up, and we're going to play Stump the BA as well.
All right.
Which Bulldog, and here's our rules. I'm going to throw it out there. You got about 10 seconds, everybody, BA, to make the decision. Number one, which Bulldog, and I'm talking about the cumulative ranking on the 24/7 composite, was the highest ranked Bulldog on the team coming out of high school?
No, I think I know this one.
You think you know that one?
It's Justin Fields.
You think it's Justin Fields?
I think it's Justin Fields.
What is everybody else here? Is Brandon going to be right there? Yep.
Yeah. All right. Oh, look at that. Oh, we got this is like a real show. We got like the question, the answer popping up. This is like a game show.
This is like quiz show. See that movie, by the way.
So can we do me a favor? Next week when we do the 6-pack, can we get like the little bell dinger noise if I get it right, or like the buzzer if I get it wrong? I think that'd be really fun. So I got that one right. A lot of folks in the comment section getting it right as well.
It's going to be fun having the buzzer for Brandon, man. That's going to be great.
All right, this is really fun. You got number 2?
Number 2. And get your thinking caps on a little bit more. The degree of difficulty. next up for the six-pack on Dog Nation. Name the Bulldog, and this is guys going to be called on to make plays. Name the Bulldog who was a 2-star recruit when he chose Georgia.
All right, do you want me to answer this, or I should let somebody answer it in here?
Everybody fire away on that. Open up the six-pack with the rest
give me
of
your
us.
answer in the comment section. By the way, Telvin Phelps says the first one was too easy. Philip Jordan Wells also says the Chip Tower's got a bell. Maybe we should use that. All right, Jason Jordan says his answer is Jake Camarda. Is he the 2-star recruit in which you're referring?
If I had the buzzer, I would go.
All right, don't give us the answer yet. Let's see if we get some more. Justin Grant says DeAndre Baker. Philip Sharp says J.R. Reed.
Close. That is a close one, but we're looking for a composite 2-star coming in.
All right, let's see the answer then.
The answer here is he's got a new jersey this year, number
Akil
25.
Crumpton.
Akil Crumpton was a transfer.
So J.R. Reed was not a 2-star because J.R. Reed was going to be my answer.
J.R. Reed was a 2-star on some services, but he was
Okay.
a composite 3-star.
Oh, this is great. This is awesome. Let's do question number 3 here. Before the Hedges presented by Kroger. Go ahead.
Another 6-pack. Which position at the University of Georgia, the number now is 21 by any sort of means or whatever, but which position at Georgia has the most composite 5-stars in the program?
By the way, congratulations to Spencer Moore, who got the Akil Crumpton question right. All right, I think I know this. It's offensive line. It's not. Oh, you mean like single position. I've been told that's not a position. Robert Barnes was thinking the same thing as me.
Let me give some clarity. Like, we're combining linebacker, we're combining defensive back,
Okay.
we're combining offensive line, we're combining wide receiver.
Oh, so you are combining offensive line.
We're combining them.
So the answer is not OL.
It's not strictly OL.
Is all right. So Sean Robinson says it's guard.
Guard. No, again, we're going vague here. We're going out to, because if you look at Georgia's offensive line, there are 2 offensive tackles that are 5-stars and 1 guard that's a 5-star.
Okay. So is it? You got to tell me.
Our answer, and it is sort of a tricky one because it's not just Georgia having one position. It's tied with 3 apiece.
Yeah, because you got Hardman and Godwin were 5-star athletes.
But now they're 5-star.
But now they're wide receiver, and obviously Demetrius Robertson becomes the 3rd there. So I'll admit, I don't think of wide receiver being among Georgia's deepest position groups when you see 3 5-stars to go along with Blunt and a whole host of former 4-stars. That's a pretty deep group there.
So right now, Brandon is 1 for 3. If this was the major leagues, he would still be an all-star at 333.
That's right. I'm still batting 333. All right. Let's do our next question here.
Number 4 on our 6-pack. Which position at Georgia has the most scholarship players? And I'm giving you your multiples here. Running back, wide receiver, offensive line, defensive line, linebacker, or DB.
All right. I think I know this. And let me see if somebody on YouTube wants to answer it. Juwan Smith says he thinks it's linebacker. That's not what I would guess. My guess would be what Red Bull 2795 says on YouTube. It's defensive back. Because Georgia's got to have 50 defensive backs. They signed like 19 DBs in the 2017 class.
If you're ever looking and you want to sound like the smart guy at your tailgate, when everybody gets Billy Bobbed or attrition or processed, anybody wants to call it, that might be a good place to look.
Tyler Taves also says defensive back.
Survey says how many scholarship players are at the University of Georgia? The most?
16 defensive backs. By the way, ring the bell for me on that one.
So, thing to think about there's 16, Brandon. You only get 85 scholarships. So that's more than 20% of the scholarship guys on the Bulldog roster are defensive backs.
All right, we got to keep it going here. Let's do question. Was it number 5 now?
I think we're on 5.
All right, number 5. Go ahead, Jeff Sintel.
Which position at Georgia will see the most players exhaust their eligibility in the next 2 years? I hinted at this earlier this week on the Daily, and it's a spot where somebody's going to have to bring in some players.
Yeah, let me see if somebody can get this one. I believe I do know this one. I know it because of what you've said over and over again. Stephen, I hope I pronounced the last name correctly, says Covarrubias says it's defensive line, and that's the right answer, right? It's defensive line, correct? Defensive
line will be very expedient here, tempo answer. 6-pack answer is the defensive line. But here's what's telling, Brandon. Within the next 2 years, they will exhaust their eligibility. 9 out of the 12 players at defensive line. And I'm not talking about defensive ends like, what Georgia does with their hybrids and their jack linebackers and everything else. This is the straight D ends. I'm including Hayes, Ledbetter. You think about it, here's some bonus points, Brandon. Let me see how smart you are. Who are the 3 that will be remaining in 2 seasons? The only 3 defensive linemen left in 2 seasons.
Davis,
Jordan Davis, that's one.
We're not counting Walther because he's not there right now.
Not there yet.
Devontae Wyatt.
2.
And then the third shall be Malik Herring.
Malik Herring, look at that. Ding, 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 ding. Get some bonus credit, BA right there.
If Herring's not playing linebacker by then.
Yeah, he won't be playing linebacker. He keeps morphing and growing. I think he's about 6'4", 275 right now.
Yeah.
One of those good tweener, 3 technique, 5 technique for Georgia. And we're off to our last 6-pack question. Let's finish.
We'll do this every week, by the way. Our 6-pack of questions from Jeff Sintel here on Before the Hedges. This will be a fun way to kind of close things out.
Let's finish off the 6-pack with one that may or may not be difficult. Which current Georgia starter signed with Tulsa coming out of high school?
Really good question there. I would imagine with some folks in our comment section might be able to give us the answer on this. Let's see who has the answer. I'm waiting for those comments to kind of come in on this.
Got a little help there.
Probably
help there.
Yeah.
Visual aids here.
Yeah, got a little nice job there. As you see, J.R. Reed, the cousin of D'Angelo Gibbs, who I think is going to be the answer you see coming in a lot there on that, including Chris Lee Figures, who also has J.R. Reed as his answer.
J.R. Reed. So here's a few staples. Did anybody go 6 for 6? Did Brandon go 6 for 6?
Not 6 for 6 on this one.
This one is kind of going to be an easier one. I'm going to amp up the difficulty a little bit. Sometimes maybe the answer might be buried in an intel, so you got to read your intel each week. But that is our Kroger Before the Hedges inaugural 6-pack right there. Hope you guys enjoyed it.
Really good stuff. Okay, I've got a winner for our How About Them Groceries question, if you don't mind. So before I give that and we get ready to say goodbye to the folks, give us a quick update here on, obviously people are thinking about visitors for Saturday against Austin Peay. Probably not the day you want to host your best recruits because it's not the sexiest environment from Sanford Stadium. You told us on Dog Nation Daily earlier this week, Jaden Hazelwood likely not to be there. Mm-hmm. Can you give us any update on what we might see?
You're going to see a lot of the in-state guys and maybe some of those emerging targets in 2020 and 21. Jamil Burroughs, one of the stars of our show today with that Ray Lewis dance, he's going to be there. You're going to see kind of the namesakes like, Ryland Godey is going to be there. You can look for Dominic Blaylock. J.D. Bertrand's not sure.
Okay.
Jalen Perry will be there. Broderick Jones will not be there. I'd look for a hot 2021 name or 2020 name to show up. You never know what can happen there in Athens between the hedges. But one thing, I just wanted to get involved in the show today. Think about on game day. Think about For the Love of Landry.
Well said.
I talked about this with Brandon. I just wish there was a way. Some people have already greatly donated, and Dog Nation should be proud of that. But for really the cost of a Powerade or some pretzels or some Cracker Jack for your kid, the minimum donation for that family is just $5. And let's run the math real fast. 96,000 people will be there. If half of the people gave $5 to that fund on the day of the game and maybe put hashtag Dog Nation Cares or Go Dogs or something like that in the GoFundMe account, that would totally change that family's world.
That is well said by Jeff Sintel. You can read more from Chip Towers about that at dognation.com. All right, here's my suggestion for the Kroger Before the Hedges How About Them Groceries gift card giveaway. Justin Grant asked you earlier how many commitment videos you filmed that never aired. That's a great question. I know of at least one. Maybe one day over the next couple of weeks you'll have to tell us the answer to that. Is it more than one commitment video you filmed that didn't air? The one that I know of, am I allowed to say this?
Well, the funny thing, before you get into that, is sometimes you just film multiple endings, Brandon.
Yeah, that's true.
So there's a way to do that. But
Can I say the one that I know?
There was one specific one, and we'll see him this fall.
That's right.
That we only filmed
that's the
one
one
ending.
That's the one that I was thinking about. Jacoby Stevens, who's at LSU now, and has changed positions like 7 times. But I think he's finally found a home there in the defensive secondary, and I've heard good things about him there for LSU. I know about that one. Has there been another one that's never aired?
There may have been one. I will say this: never aired or aired later than it should have, or different ways to look at that, or aired with a different school,
right?
Or other ways to look at that.
Yeah, you and I both have shot a few for guys they ended up not going to the school they said they were going to. We both have a history of that, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's standard across the industry. But the one thing I will say is I'm not going to throw this out there, but there was a recruit last couple of years, a 5-star recruit, that said the only way, and this is a good teaching tool for recruiting, the only way, and he was so respectful, he said, "Sir, the only way, sir, I won't be playing football for the University of Georgia is if they shut down the football program." We wouldn't have a show right now if Georgia hadn't shut down the football program. So that one right there, to quote the great social philosopher Vince Vaughn from earlier in our show, that one was erroneous on both counts as well.
Great stuff from Jeff Sintel. You can read him every day at the dognation.com with the Sintel Intel. You can also check him out very busy on the forum at forum.dognation.com. My name is Brandon Adams. I'd love to see you tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. live for Dog Nation Daily, also available as a podcast and radio show, pretty much wherever you gotta go to find stuff like that. Also, very special thanks to Kroger for being a part of this. Don't forget to go to dognation.com. Register for your chance to win our Dog Nation Invasion giveaway courtesy of Kroger. You can join us in Baton Rouge, you and a guest if you're the winner there, so check that out at dognation.com. We'll be announcing the winner coming up very soon here on Before the Hedges presented by Kroger. Y'all have a great day. We'll look forward to seeing you next Wednesday, 3 p.m. Eastern Time, as Before the Hedges returns once again.
Yep. Somebody got us.